Yes, it's the Goldbergs. Quiet, please, girls. Quiet. Today, we begin our special Wash Day School for Brides, conducted by Professor Duz. All right. Now, first I'm going to ask some of you brides to step up to the microphone here and tell me just what are your biggest wash day problems. Okay? Who's first?
Professor.
Yes?
I have a terrible time with my husband's work shirts.
Uh-huh.
I just scrub and scrub.
Well, we'll take care of that.
Towels white enough to satisfy my mother.
Next?
I just can't find a wash day soap that's really safe for my rayons and nicer colored things.
Problem number 3, rayons. Well, girls, you certainly brought your wash day troubles to the right place, because here's how to solve all 3 of those problems with just one soap.
What? One soap for everything?
Yes, Duz, that new kind of granulated soap. You see, Duz does all 3 kinds of wash, from dirty work shirts and streaky towels to pretty rayon slips.
But, Professor, my mother always warned me that granulated wash day soaps were too hard on those nice colors.
Oh, but Duz is different from any other leading granulated wash day soap. It's so much safer. Safer for your fussy-colored rayons and nicer washables.
But will Duz get my towels white? They have to suit my mother-in-law, remember?
They will. Why, she won't find a whiter wash anywhere than Duz gives you. In fact, Duz can't be beat by any other soap for getting clothes dazzling white.
Don't forget me and my work shirt.
Oh, don't you worry. Duz will get them really clean without any hard scrubbing. Why, no soap made gets clothes clean easier than Duz.
Say, if Duz can do all that, I'm going to try it. Me too. Oh, Professor, you're wonderful.
Oh, it's not me. It's Duz. Once you try it, you'll see it's a really new kind of granulated soap. Ask for DUZ, Duz, today. And next wash day, let Duz do everything. And now, the Goldbergs. Molly, Jake, and Sammy are in New York at their friend's, Mrs. Bloom. But the visit isn't social. The Goldbergs are waiting until it's time to meet the midnight train from Florida and Rosie Goldberg. That's the whole point. For Rosie was sent away from home, and Rosie is returning, all because of Walter Jerome. The fly in the ointment is that Walter is engaged to someone else, and his family doesn't want to see that engagement broken. Neither do the Goldbergs, for that matter. And so, Jake is all upset because Walter's father has come over to see him. Listen.
Jake, please.
Don't Jake me.
Don't Jake me, no.
Mr. Jerome is nothing to me, and I'm less to him. And I therefore have nothing to say to him. And I want you to go inside and tell him so.
Wait, Sammy, please.
Don't start, Molly.
Oh, please, Sammy, close the door. This is not our house. We're not home. This is Mrs. Bloom's house. She has company. We don't have to disturb her.
Okay, Pa.
Jake.
Pa, Mr. Jerome is here. You can have good manners.
Good manners, huh? And you call it good manners to fall in on us here, which is not even our private home, huh?
All right.
What's all right?
Nothing. Nothing is all right. Go inside to Mrs. Bloom and the company, Jake. I'll receive Mr. Jerome. I'll talk to him.
What will you talk to him about?
He came here to talk to us. Let him talk.
Very well, Molly. But I want you to know you are doing it without my approval. That's all. I want you to know that.
I know it. I know it. Go, Sammy, please. Tell Mr. Jerome I'm in here. Please, he should come in here. Please, Sammy.
He may not want to speak to you in the kitchen. It may offend his delicate sensibilities.
Gee, Pa.
Without the G's.
Well, why without the G's, Pa? Why do you have to get yourself in such a state that you can't even listen?
What is there to listen to?
To reason.
Reason,
Yes,
huh?
reason. You're so excited that you can't even see what's involved.
I'm excited.
Yes. Can't you listen for 2 minutes? Is that so hard? It's not important that Mr. Jerome came to see you, and it's not important whether you see him or not. The only thing that counts is Rosie.
That's what I say.
And I said no?
Will you please let me talk, Pa? Rosie's coming home tonight, and she telegraphed that she was happy. Well, it's obviously because Walter told her something on the telephone.
If you hadn't invited Walter and his mother and his financier to our house, she wouldn't have talked to him.
That's the whole point, Pa. Why don't you give me a chance to speak? It doesn't matter. We've got to go back to Lansbury.
Go back to Glastonbury.
And Rosie has to go back with us.
Rose has to go back with us.
Can't keep her from Walter for the rest of her life. Can't make her a prisoner.
Make her Rosalie a prisoner.
If she loves Walter, she loves him.
So, Dorothy Dix, what do you advise?
I'm not saying she should marry him. I'm only saying that the way to treat this, the way to deal with it, is not to get on your high horse and start building a wall around our house.
A wall around on a high horse? 1, 2, 3, because if Mr. Jerome came and he wants to have a word, he wants to pass a conversation, have to get on a high rocking course?
Maybe Rosie and Walter aren't right for each other. All right, suppose we all agree on that. You and me and Mama and the Jeromes. But if Walter and Rosie don't agree with us, there's nothing we can do about it.
That's your analysis, not mine.
Jake, so where are you going?
I'm not even finished. Why won't he listen? Gee, Ma, being angry is just a way of not facing the problem. There's nothing we can do about Rosie and Walter if we keep yelling at them and giving them orders. Suppose they are in love. We think it's wrong. We have to have reasons for thinking it's wrong. We have to be sure our reasons are right. And then...
And then?
Well, we've always loved Rosie and she's always loved us. Our family's pretty close, Ma. That means we trust each other. We like each other. We believe in each other. We've got to help Rosie see what the reasons are. She's got to come to believe and understand them just as strongly as we do. She's got to be the one who decides that she and Walter aren't right for each other. It's no use breaking this up, Ma, if the end is that we lose Rosie's love for us. Because isn't that the point of all the worrying?
Yes, Emily. You're right. It's the only point. But don't forget, Emily, between being a young girl and a young woman, there's more than years and there's more than experience. And sometimes all the love and all the reasons in the world can't make the bridge. So who else, Emily, but a mother must decide to be responsible? To try, I mean, no matter what. A person has to have the courage to be wrong, Emily. I mean, to take the consequences, even if you are wrong when you thought you were right. After all, Emily, when you were a baby and you wanted to touch the hot stove, I said no. You still tried. So I slapped your hand. Not because I was angry, but because the pain from the slap was less than the pain from the burn. And I had to choose between you liking me a little less, because I didn't want you to be hurt more. And I feel the same way about Rosalie now. That's why.
And furthermore, Molly, there's something nothing.
Oi, Jake, with the furthermore and something and the furthermore and something, please. Emily, go in and call Mr. Jerome and tell him I want to speak to him right now and right at this second and right instantaneously.
Oh, okay.
Please.
I don't want
Jake,
you to
please.
forget. And I want you to forget a few pertinent points in your conversation with Mr. Jerome,
I
Molly.
wouldn't forget the pointments. And what, for instance?
For instance, that...
Shh, please.
Very sorry, I didn't want to disturb.
It's all right. Ma, this is Mr. Jerome.
How do you do?
How do you do, Mr. Jerome?
My father, Mr. Jerome.
Very glad to meet you, Mr. Goldberg.
Mrs. Goldberg consented to give you an audience. Not me, Mr. Jerome. I can't see that we have anything to talk about. I'd prefer it if my daughter Rosalie was not under discussion. And I prefer, therefore,
Jake,
not
please.
Excuse me.
Just sit down, Mr. Jerome. Emily, when you go inside, close the kitchen door.
All right.
Please sit down, Mr. Jerome.
Thank you.
Evidently, Mr. Jerome, Mrs. Jerome is as perturbed and disturbed and unhappy about this whole, what shall I call it, as we are. If she wasn't, I'm sure she wouldn't have gone to the trouble of calling from Glastonbury for you to contact us here by Mrs. Bloom in New York.
Mrs. Jerome.
I understand. I met Mrs. Jerome. I know that your son is engaged. And I want as much as you do.
Molly, please tell Mr. Jerome that we are no more delighted about this whole business than he is. Please, tell him that.
See, Mr. Goldberg is very perturbed. Mr. Jerome, my Rosalie is only a child. She's coming home tonight on the midnight train from Florida. And if you wish to see for yourself, you can come down and speak
Tell
to...
Mr. Jerome that our daughter is only a child. Tell him also that we send her away miles and miles in order to avoid...
Jake!
Yes, Jake!
We want you to know that to avoid what we didn't want to happen, we sent Rosalie to Florida. For some reason unknown to us, she's coming home. We didn't want it to come home until after your son and his fiancée left Glastonbury.
Please, Mrs. Goldberg, I don't want you to think that
But what I think and what you think is very unimportant. It's what my daughter feels and what it's doing to her, Mr. Jerome.
Tell Mr. Jerome that I want it understood.
Mr. Goldberg, why don't you come in here and sit down and tell me all that yourself? And perhaps I have something to tell you also.
Whatever it is, I am not interested.
If I loved my daughter as much as you seem to love yours, I would be interested.
What's that?
I said I love my daughter.
You're here because you love your son, not my daughter.
That's right. Then don't you think we have something to talk about?
Come in, Jake.
Sit down.
Sit down, Jake.
Sit down.
I'm sitting.
And red-faced, angry, on his dignity, Jake stares at Mr. Jerome, waiting to hear anything that might even minutely reflect on the Goldberg interests. Just what has Mr. Jerome in mind? You know, I guess a lot of you ladies are having trouble with those halfway soaps for dishes. I mean bar soaps because they don't have real speed, and those tough granulated soaps because they're short on safety for your hands. Well, you can be sure there's nothing halfway about new Does, because this new kind of granulated soap has everything from whirlwind speed to extra gentleness for your hands. Yes, this same Does that does everything in your wash goes all the way on dishes, too. Just notice how satin soft and smooth your hands feel after doing dishes with Does. Actually, it's the only leading granulated wash day soap to give your hands this extra gentle care. Yet you can't buy a soap that gets dishes clean faster or easier than Does, and you don't have to do any hard scouring to cut even the toughest grease. Just let those busy suds tell you how really different Does is. Try it today. Does has everything for dishes. Be sure to listen to the next episode of The Goldbergs. Tomorrow, Molly hears Mr. Jerome's attitude toward the romance, and we hear Mrs. Jerome's attitude toward everything. This is Clayton Collier wishing you good day for Procter & Gamble, makers of Does, the new kind of granulated soap for all three kinds of wash.